Okay, we're recording live now. Now.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
We're
All
just
right,
having
so
too much fun.
I know. Yeah. Well, you're in Hawaii. You're in Hawaii. I put my Hawaiian shirt on. This a little Hawaiian. See, I got erupting volcanoes. I don't know how to get this thing.
Oh yeah, you got some volcanoes on there.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I
You're-
got erupting volcanoes all over my
You're
shirt.
looking good, Nigel.
I think there's a shark too.
Yeah, the shark. I know. You got to watch out for that one. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a hat. Oh yeah, it is a volcano.
It looks
Isn't
like a little sombrero or something. I know. But anyway, sorry, Deb. Go ahead.
Anywho, yes, thank you so much for stopping by, checking out the podcast, everyone. Today, we have an awesome guest for you. She was the founder of Silver Oak Cellars. She targets programs that empower at-risk adolescents and adults by empowering people with the resources, tools, and personal skills to thrive in today's society. She is the principal of Meyer Family Enterprises and the author of the award-winning Perfectly Paired, the love affair behind Silver Oak Cellars. Please welcome our good friend, Bonny Meyer. Bonny, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I love seeing you guys.
Love seeing you too. Thank you so much for being on the show. This is great. I haven't talked for a while.
It's like the comedy show here. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what we're doing.
We don't know. We have no idea.
Flying by this. Just
we just get really incredible people and just see where it goes. So Bonny,
I know
you're in Hawaii. Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about this later, but it doesn't. The foundation for this conversation is we met in the Amazon and had crazy times and went rappelling down waterfalls. So of course there's going to be craziness in this.
That's right. That's totally true. And I just, I think about that, and that was like 11 years ago now, and I just can't believe it. Devin was 14 or something.
I think so. Yeah.
13, 14. Yeah.
Maybe even younger. Yeah.
Yeah. But so you talk about the waterfall. So yeah, we were down in Ecuador. We were heading down towards the Amazon, and your brother and I got so sick. We got so sick. Mm-hmm. We couldn't leave this little hotel, and then you guys went off rappelling down waterfalls, and Devin and I missed the whole rappelling thing, and Devin went and all that, but then we got lost. Dylan and I got lost in this little town in Baños or somewhere. I don't know where we were. And we were lost for like the whole day, and we didn't have we didn't know anybody. We were like, okay, we didn't have any of our dog. We didn't have anything. We were sick. We were just dying. And then our friend Daniel Cooperman, I went into a church just to look around and left Dylan in the park sleeping. And I look, and there's this big, tall, because Daniel's this big, tall guy in the crowd. And I'm like, that's Daniel right there. And he actually found us, got in a taxi, and we found you guys. So we were lost. But anyway, so we start our show with something called Two Truths and a Lie. Okay. So we have the incredible Bonny Meyer here. And so I'm gonna read out a couple little things here. Devin and I have to guess which is the lie out of these things. Sure. So number one, I went freight riding when I was younger. So is that like jumping on a train? Freight riding, is that what that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe that.
Okay.
True.
Yeah. That was true. I love swimming in the ocean, but I'm afraid of whales. Oh, and there's a lot around Hawaii right now. The humpbacks they get off the coast there. And number 3, I have been trained as a remote viewer. Now, could you tell us what that is? What's a remote viewer?
A remote viewer is when you're given like longitude and latitude, and then you meditate and tell people what's there.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I know you mentioned that to us, because we came down, and actually you were really kind. You let us stay on you had a houseboat in Sausalito, and we were there, and we were sitting up on the upper deck, and you had a friend come over, and you guys were talking about that, the way that you're able to meditate and meet. And it was almost like shamanism. It's like where shamans connect that way, I believe. Yeah.
It is very much like what shamans do.
Oh my gosh. So, well, that one for me has to be true.
For sure.
Yeah, I'd
We have the
forgotten that we
evidence.
had that conversation.
Yeah, I was infatuated at that time. I had no idea what you were talking about then, but then over the years, actually getting to know some shamans and become really good friends with actually Devin's really good shaman friend Jamie Alvarez. I'm like, okay, now I understand. It's incredible, absolutely fantastic stuff. So okay, what do you think, Devin?
Well, I'm
You're
taking
swimming
that one obviously as truth. I'm taking the first one, freight riding trains for sure. Come on. So I think you love swimming, but you're not afraid of whales. So the middle one, because it says I am afraid of whales.
You
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's, yeah, you're actually not afraid of whales.
actually, I just so I didn't know whether you would have noticed or not, but I've become a YouTuber, and I have a YouTube channel,
right.
and I just published one about whales, and so I love whales.
Yeah. Boom. Come on.
Especially being in Hawaii there right now. It's like the way, I mean, I don't know if they're in migration right now at the time of the year, but
It's
it's almost
the end
guaranteed.
of the time that they're here. So there's not as many as there were out there
Mhm.
before. But yeah, they're here all winter to mate and to have babies. And so the
Wow.
ones who are still here are mostly the mothers and babies. And
Yeah.
they want their babies to be big enough and strong enough to travel. I don't remember how many thousands of miles it is, but it's a long way up to
So they head up
Alaska.
to Alaska? They head to
They
Alaska,
do
right? They pass through
to
and they head up
Alaska.
to Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're
And
are
they
they humpbacks?
humpbacks, and they don't, from the time they leave Alaska to the time they return, so
Mhm.
about 5-6 months, they don't eat. Can you
That's
imagine?
right. That's right. I was watching The Big Blue on Knowledge Network the other day, and that's exactly what they were saying. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's not that they're on a diet. They just don't have the right food here. They don't have krill.
Yeah, and then they come down and they go after the krill blooms, and they
Yep,
feast on tons and tons and tons a day of
yep.
krill. It's yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah, amazing. So yeah, learn something every day. Yeah.
there you go.
So yeah, as Bonnie mentioned earlier, we were really fortunate. We were invited to go deep into the Amazon rainforest in 2010. At least we were together then. With the group called the Pachamama Alliance, which is headed by Lynn and Bill Twist and a whole bunch of other really incredible game-changing people. And we've had Lynn on our podcast here. And yeah, and we all connected. And the really cool thing was it was mostly ladies that were on the trip, because there was Bonnie and there was Gloria and there was some other incredible Treya and
Treya,
Lauren Embry and some
Lauren.
really
Hmm.
amazing people on this journey, and I had no idea what to expect. And we also did a journey inside the journey where we were with an Ashwar tribe, and we did a ceremony which entailed some plant medicine. And yeah, and I had a major awakening during that journey. And it was so nice to have Bonnie and all these other people there that we had never met before. And we've all become good friends, and we've kept in touch over the past 11 years and connected. And so, yeah, it's just an incredible experience. And you've been a few times, haven't you, Bonnie?
I've been to the Amazon 3 times.
Yeah.
Um, so I went later. Lynn Lynn Twist has put together groups of 12 women,
Mhm.
um, and you go through kind of a 6-month process that entails a trip to a different part of the Amazon.
Yeah.
Um, and it's called, what is it called? The Remarkable Women's Journey.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so she chooses 12 women that she feels will really benefit, who already are doing things in the world that are remarkable in some way or another,
Mhm.
and but who will benefit from that 6 months of becoming a cohort together,
Mhm.
and uh, those those awakening moments, those aha moments that
Yes.
happen in the jungle. One of the
Mhm.
and actually on that trip, we my aha moment, actually, there was a shaman there who we went for a very short walk in the jungle.
Mhm.
I mean, we were just kind of around the camp where we were, and he picked up a leaf and he kind of crumbled it and he put it between his hands. He says, "See, this is soap." And then he picked something else and he said, "This will make your skin softer."
Mhm.
And then there was another leaf that he picked. He says, "This is eye drops and um, it will help macular degeneration,"
Yeah.
which we tend to
Wow.
think is not curable.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
just he just really in a very casual fashion, he's walking around and picking up things, and my aha moment was, we are surrounded by everything we need.
Yeah.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, we are surrounded, and it's so palpable when you're in the Amazon. I don't, so remember that you've been there for a few times too, in the jungle like that.
Mm.
And people ask me, "Well, what is it like?" And I say, "Well, it's so green." And they just look at me like, "Yeah, okay." But there's something, it's an alive green,
Yes.
and there's a smell, and then it's noisy.
Hmm.
It's, you
Oh,
remember how
it was
loud,
whatever noisy at night. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, how loud it is, and it's just teeming with life. And
Yeah.
so it's easier to real think about when you're in that environment that you're surrounded by everything you need. But we
Yeah.
really are, even in our more urban environments and built
Yeah.
environments, we actually are surrounded by everything we
Everything we
need.
need. Yeah. I remember, well, we were before we did the ceremony, we had to do a fast, and then we did like a 3-hour trek through the jungle.
Hmm.
Because we went in these little boats. The boats dropped us off at the riverbank, and we had to trek with, and the guides had machetes, the Oshawa guides through the machetes, and they got lost a couple of times actually. and and it was really, really interesting because what we did is we spread out so nobody could see anybody else, and we all sat down and we sat there for I don't know how long, and we had to meditate on our own without anybody around. And I just remembering being a little bit scared to do that, but then when everybody disappeared and I was kind of there, like you said, everything was there, and I just felt so alive, and I just closed my eyes and listened to all the little critters and the bird and everything that was there. It was just an incredible experience, just being there alone, not being able to see anybody. I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere, but in the middle of everywhere, I say.
Hmm.
And I mean, Devin, you did that too. Hey, I mean, you were,
Yeah.
how did you feel when you were doing that? Do you remember? Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember. I remember. Yeah, it's such a, it's what you guys are saying. It's such a strong place, and that is the way to explain it. It is so green. It is the greenest place you could possibly be on planet Earth,
Yeah.
really. And
Yeah.
actually, Bianca, my girlfriend, is taking a herbology course right now, and
Hmm.
she read me this fact, and I might be paraphrasing a little bit, but I think it was something like there's more biodiversity in a square meter of the Amazon rainforest than there is in like all of North America or something. And I was like, what? I was like, yeah, it makes sense, right? And the same thing, like you're saying, oh, this is eye drops, this is that. I remember I had a headache, and then the dude went and like cut a tree, right? And he's like, this is for your headache, like put some on your tongue. Okay, so I had some on my tongue. 10 minutes later, it was like all good. It's just
Mm,
like, yeah, it's just so powerful, the medicines that are down there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
everything. It
I
really is.
remember I remember people saying, "Oh, you're going to the Amazon. Oh, you need lots of bug spray. You need all this DEET and everything." And I'm like, "Oh gosh, I guess so." I got there and everything was in such perfect balance and equilibrium that I didn't find the mosquitoes a problem. The temperature was perfect. It was a
Mhm.
perfect environment for human existence.
Mhm.
Everything was there, like you said. We had everything there, and unfortunately, and I mean, I can go down this route here, but Latin America there, with the deforestation in the Amazon is just horrific right now, especially I think during the COVID and some political stuff in the Brazilian rainforest, which we probably won't talk about, but so there's a lot of horrific deforestation going, and like you said, we have more biodiversity in that square meter than we have in North America, and we're tearing it to shreds, and it's just insane what we humans do. So sorry, Bonnie. Yeah.
Let me say one more thing about that. Another time that I went to the Amazon was with the Amazon Conservation Team. And Amazon Conservation Team, their focus is to support the shamans, because they realized that it was the shamans who understood all the wealth that was there, and that they were the most likely to preserve the forest, or to get their tribe to preserve the forest. And so it's not the indigenous people that are deforesting, by the way. No. But the shamans are just so amazing. How they can go, pick a leaf or get some bark and cure your headache. And so I went to this shaman. It was really a shaman version of a medical conference. And the conservation team had gathered shamans from all over, from like 3 different countries. And they came together, and for a few days, we were in a little, we were in a place where they just shared with each other what they use different plants for. And one person would say, well, I use this for headache. And somebody says, well, it also works for stomachache. Wow. And they were having that kind of conversation, and it was extraordinary. And I felt really, really privileged to be there with these accomplished, it takes much longer to become a shaman than it does to become a medical doctor in our society.
You know what is interesting about the shaman is, before I went into the Amazon with you guys, I've heard the word shaman, and I thought, a witch doctor, because that's the way we've always portrayed it in our way. Witch doctor, black magic, all this stuff. And so when 2 shamans showed up in the village to, we were doing ceremony, we were having a serum, this ayahuasca serum, and I was like, oh, this is, I was a little bit, scared, these shaman. But what I've learned since that period in time, because I did have an awakening there, and since that time, we become friends with a few shaman, and the word shaman is a little bit, I don't know if it's misleading in our West or what we portrayed it as, but really they're wisdom keepers. They're wisdom keepers that are bringing the wisdom from generations and generations, and it's passed down to the wisdom keepers. And the elders or the elders pass down the information, and it's there to share with the next generations. And that's what shaman are. They're the ones that have been given the wisdom and to share it. And so they get a bit of a bad rap, I think, in our Western world as voodoo and witch doctors, whatever you want to, whatever we. It's not that at all. It's the wisdom keepers that have the wisdom from the natural world that they're passing down to us, and we're so fortunate to be able to have this. So that's and it's really cool that there's and I don't know why there shouldn't be, as conferences, shaman conclaves, where they share all this incredible wisdom and medicinal, and just like what Bianca's doing, she's taking a medicinal course as well. So so I mean, we could talk about this for a long time. We could talk. You and your husband, Justin, you guys formed, Silver Oak Wineries many years ago, which, I mean, that's a whole book. That's an incredible story. He was actually a monk and had a great recipe for wine, and that's where Silver Oak was born, many years ago. So
there was a little magic in that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and a lot of it is in your book. I think a lot of the details are in your book. So yeah, you've wrote this book, which is called Perfectly Paired, which is a new book. So what gave you the inspiration? I mean, there's so many things that gave you inspiration, and I know the passing of your husband was, I believe, most likely one of them. But what was the inspiration behind writing this incredible book?
You
Perfectly
know,
Paired.
for decades and decades and decades, people have
Yeah,
wanted me to write the story of how I met a monk and
yeah,
married a monk, and then we created Silver Oak. So they wanted to, people want to know about that romance and how did it come about?
yeah.
Because it's a forbidden romance, right? Monks
Hmm.
are not supposed to fall in love and get married. So
Hmm.
that's what that's that's the story that many people wanted to hear. And I always thought, well, I don't want to tell that story. That's that's my personal business, and why would I want to do that? And it was many years, it was a number of years after he died
Yeah,
that I was inspired by some folks to tell the story, because most people would say that our love for each other, that our relationship
hmm,
um, between me and Justin was extraordinary.
yeah,
And so I in describing what happened, right? What
yeah,
happened
yeah,
is what happens in life. In
yeah.
describing what happened, I really intentionally created like a treasure map.
Oh,
So in reading the book, there are a lot of clues about how to have extraordinary relationship, what the
hmm,
components of that are,
hmm,
the authenticity, the surrender, and then the really living by your values.
yeah,
There's a treasure map to sustainable business.
hmm, hmm,
That again, a values-based business actually leads to success. You can, when you have values of integrity and fun,
yeah,
you actually you do great work and you attract customers. People
yeah,
loved
hmm,
us and loved our wines. Um, Great wine is made in the vineyard. So there's magic in that,
mm,
to how do you listen to the vineyard and cultivate it and respond to it and encourage it in ways to produce the best grapes possible.
yeah,
And then each vintage to coax out of it the greatest potential. Like you do, people often would say, well, what's your favorite wine? And I go, well, that's like asking me, what is my favorite kid? You know, and they're all I have three children, they're all very different from each other. But what you do as a parent is you try to create an environment around them with what
mm,
you do and what you say
hmm,
that encourages the best of them, you know,
yeah,
just really nurtures and coax the the best according to their native potential. And that's what
mm,
you do with each vintage of wine.
hmm,
So and then I also would say that why were Silver Oak wines so good? Because they were infused with our love.
mm,
And I think
hmm,
there's a lot of magic in that.
sure,
That
yeah,
when you um, Justin and I really, from the almost the moment we met, we really loved each other deeply.
hmm.
Oh, and we met through music. You've got guitars on the wall behind you,
Oh yeah.
Nigel, and
Uh,
um, but we deeply loved each other, and I swear that it really infused the business and the wine with that
right.
love.
Yeah.
Um, and then the further magic, and I won't go into detail about this. People have to read the book.
Mm.
He showed up after he died in
Yeah,
different
that was gonna.
magical ways.
Mhm.
And so a testimony to how life and connection continues beyond what we can see,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you
right?
mentioned was the connection and the relationship that you had, you still have, and you probably still have after he
Hmm.
passed,
Hmm.
which is something that people, I don't know, it's extraordinary. And we all want to believe that there's that's something there, and they people don't actually, they're always connected.
Well,
Yeah.
so
Mm.
Devin, you've experienced this. So you talk about what's your girlfriend's name again?
Bianca.
Bianca.
Hmm.
So Bianca's not there with you, right?
Hmm.
Can you feel her presence, or can you feel the connection to her?
For sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we all experience it all the time.
Right.
Mhm.
This is something we all experience all the time, but we don't think about it. And we
Right.
think that after somebody dies, somehow it's different.
Mm.
And I will say, you were, Nigel, you just called it an extraordinary experience. It's actually not.
Really.
What if you ask most people who have lost a really close loved one,
Mhm.
they have experienced it too, but they never talk about it.
Ah.
We don't in our culture. So that was one of again, another reason for writing, that I decided to write the book, is to talk about these things so that they become part of um, our cultural conversation.
Hmm. It's interesting that you said that, because there's instances, and everybody can relate to this, is that you're thinking of somebody, and this is just really, and I guarantee if you picked up the phone and called them, they would say, "Oh my gosh, I was thinking about you too." At the same, so there is something there. There's definitely this connection that's there, that you can't see. And it's
Yeah.
just it's uncanny so many times that, oh my gosh, I was just like okay, it's Reiko and I were we were walking the dog yesterday up by our house, and we're talking about our neighbor. He does intermittent fasting, and we were joking around saying, oh yeah, Sean probably hasn't had anything to eat yet. He drove up within half a second, pulled up his car, rolled down the window, "Hey guys, how's it going?" I'm like, Sean, like, we were just talking about you half a second ago, not even a second,
Mm,
half a second. These connections and these things, it's just, so why
mhm.
not? Why not?
Yeah.
When people pass, why not?
Hmm.
Why can't that be the same as something like that?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just I read a book by C.S. Lewis just recently.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm thinking of I'm working with someone to create a screenplay,
Mm.
for a possible film that's
Oh,
related to the
wow.
book.
Wow.
And he encouraged me to read a book by C.S. Lewis called Grief Explored or Examined, something
Mhm.
like that. And he was talking about his grief when his wife died,
Mhm.
and what he described for himself. He was really despondent at first,
Mhm.
and went into some real dark places,
Mhm.
which he describes. And then later, as his grief kind of wasn't so intense,
Mhm.
um, he began to feel that connection with his wife.
Mm.
Ah.
And it's like our intense grief can get in the way
Right.
of
Yeah.
allowing. You've got to somehow, you have to surrender. You've got to allow for all the best, that from all your experiences that
Mhm.
in the Amazon, in the mountains of Latin America, there's a surrender that's required.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, what you said, also with the love into the wine, and
Hmm.
the things like the power of attraction. When I met you and I met Lynn Twist, and we had this incredible experience deep. And people go, oh yeah, what happened to you? You went off to the Amazon and had an epiphany. I'm like, yeah, actually I did. I did. That's kind of a cliche. And I'm like, no, it actually happened. But that was in 2010. My life and our family's life had a major shift after that journey. And there's the power of attraction, there's the power of positive energy, the power of getting into your sweet spot and doing what you love to do. After that, I actually stepped out of where I was into a new world, and things just started happening so quickly. And I got like the power of attraction, like you say, and the love. It brought these incredible people into our lives that we've connected with and stayed connected with, that are doing incredible things all over the planet. And I honestly believe, like, once you're in that sweet spot, things just grow and grow and grow in the best of ways. So and then, having your, doing what you love to do with your wine, with your husband, and doing it, and that attraction that you're creating in the world and bringing people to you. There's nothing like it. But if we force things, like you just said, if you surrender and let yourself, amazing things happen. If we try and force it, it just doesn't appear.
Yeah. Well, and Nigel, I know that
anyway.
at that time you were thinking about selling your company.
That's right.
Your company had gotten to a certain point where you thought, maybe I'll sell it. I think there was somebody that was interested. And what happened is you fell in love with your company all over again.
Yeah. And the company and the platform that I'd been so fortunate, all the people that I'd met because of the platform, and at that point I just wasn't ready, and it just opened up. Everything just opened up after that. I mean, and then, yeah. But it's being in that sweet spot, finding what you love, you truly love to do with purpose, finding, people call it your life's purpose. What's your life's purpose? Your why. Yes, Simon Sinek, he says, find your why. What's your why? And it really, I really examined a lot of that. What is my why? Why do I do what I do? Why does my company do what it does? Why do, once you find your kind of your why and your purpose, things just take off. And, I believe that's what happened with you, with your business, and now, with this book. Sorry, Dev, did you have a question there?
No. I was just going to say, like, what you guys are talking about. It's like the energy and the flow of the universe. It's like such a real thing that us in kind of the Western world kind of get shunned away from really learning about. But it's totally what you're saying, putting the love into the wine. Like, not that it has to be scientifically real, but it is. Like, if you have put positive energy into something, or it's, let's say, like, you sit down, you eat something and you're very happy, there's a chemical mixture in your brain that's actually, it's benefiting your body way more than if you're like depressed trying to like scarf down some food, right? It's the same thing. It's real. And it's definitely there. And then going back to talking to people who or finding spirits kind of in like the spiritual realm and having those connections with people. It's so true. You feel like if you're away from your family, you think about your family, or you think about your friends. And I had one of my buddies actually passed away, and I was so confused, and I just didn't know what to do. And I was just asking myself, like, why? Like, what the heck? And I was in this, but as soon as I calmed down, I actually had a dream where he came to me in a dream, and I was like, it was so real. Like, it was just so vivid. And he's like, I was like crying. And he's like, why are you crying? I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, I'm so confused. And he just grabbed my hand. He's like, it's all right, man. It's okay. And that just hit me right in my heart. And I woke up and I felt so much better about the whole situation and everything. But it's real. Like, it's as real as water flowing in a stream and mountains. Like, yeah, there's this energy, and that's what the shamans do, right? They use that energy, and you can, it's like how we have like radio waves and stuff that send, like, emit little waves, and then they go and hit a satellite, come back down. It's like, that's how the shaman's explaining how they're like speaking to somebody across the world or whatnot, like you do, works, right? And if they have that, they can compare those two so closely. You're like, oh, and you don't even know like what a radio wave is, right? These people, they're explaining it like that. You're like, okay, so that's right. But I think there's there's so much like pollution and in the waves and like the phones and all this stuff that it becomes hard to be attached to finding that energy and finding those frequencies, but you definitely can. Yeah. It's kind of a long way around it, but yeah, that, I don't know.
No.
Thought building up there for a little bit, but yeah.
Well,
No, not at
Devin,
all.
you just described actually one of the experiences I had after Justin had died is I would have from time to time what's called lucid dreams. And lucid dreams are different than regular dreams because you feel like you're there you're actually participatory. You're really there.
Right.
And it seems more real actually than waking reality. It seems very real. And so here you are, and I had these lucid dreams of Justin, and I was so comforted by them. But then when I would wake up, I'd be depressed again. Or I'd be sad again, and it was those experiences that when I read about a place called the Monroe Institute, I decided to go and learn more how to actually have those kinds of experiences or dreams, if you will, through meditation. Do it instead of waiting for one to happen. I wanted to be able to learn how to actually contact Justin, and I did learn.
Wow.
But it's but that's one of the key ways that when people die, they come, and they often are doing exactly that, Devin. They are comforting us.
Yeah.
They're there to say it's okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I fully like it. I believe like it's so real. And I kind of looked into more about it because it started happening, and I was like, I need to check out what this is all about. But I kind of got to some points that was saying like DMT gets released in the brain when we're sleeping. It also happens when we die, right? And there's all these little points of, oh, okay, so DMT. And then I was reading all these studies on DMT, and people were talking about how they go into like a spiritual realm. This is kind of like a whole different note, but it's really interesting. And then I was reading about these people who had near-death experiences, and they have, and then so the DMT get released in your brain when you have a near-death experience, or so these people are like they're like losing a lot of blood, whatever, had a baby, and then they go up and they see themselves, they can see themselves down, and then they're kind of floating away, and they meet these spiritual beings who like basically say to them, you can go back right now, or you can come to this warm place with us, which is like the afterlife. And this lady was like, I choose to go back. So she went back into her body. They're reading about these people who just did DMT, and they had the exact same experience. So I think within the going and dreaming, with a little bit of DMT being released in your brain, maybe you're journeying into the spiritual realm where you're susceptible to those spirits and energy where they can come and talk to you. That's what I put together from it, and that's what I believe. So.
Yeah, these meditations, I don't know anything about DMT, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
But these meditations, you basically raise your vibration.
Right.
Of course, that's easy for me to say. It's something that you need to, takes a lot of focus and some learning. But when you raise your vibration in meditation, you can raise it to different levels of consciousness.
Right.
And then enter different realms.
So different realms would be like our shaman friends talk about, like even different dimensions, multiple dimensions here right now, just passing through, stepping through into a different dimension.
Yep. One of the interesting things that the Monroe Institute does, and the way that they teach these things, is you're listening to sound, you're listening to vibration. So they created this, and I have my hands over both ears because you'll get a slightly different sound in one ear to the other ear. So just that, like when you're tuning a guitar and it's a little bit off and it vibrates.
Yeah.
They've created that kind of vibration in these recordings that they have created, and it helps you attain and maintain certain levels of consciousness.
Huh.
But one of the great things about the way they teach it is you go on this meditation journey, you're with a group of people, you're by yourself, and then you come back into the group, and you realize that they had the same experience. As you chat about it, oh, this level, it felt really light and airy, and this is what I saw there, and it becomes a consensus reality. You realize that everybody saw the same thing, whereas a different level of consciousness seems a little kind of foggy and dim, and
Mhm.
and you begin to realize that this is not my imagination.
Mhm.
I'm
Wow.
seeing the same things that all these other people are seeing. This is a
Exactly.
real dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
it's fascinating. We people called consciousness explorers. People who have been students there out for a while. We
Mhm.
basically think of ourselves as consciousness explorers,
Mhm.
and you're just exploring, well, what's really there beyond everyday consciousness
Mm.
and dreaming. What's beyond that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. So I know when we were having lunch on your deck down in Sausalito
Uh-huh.
there, I can't remember his name. He came to join us, a younger guy, younger than me anyway. And you were talking about you're visiting each other, and but you'd be in different parts of the country or something, and then you would have a visit. You'd have a visit, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I was just like, well, I had no idea what you were talking about. I thought it was totally kooky. At the time, this is 10 years ago.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But after journeying and going to being in Peru and all these different places around the world, and meeting with these spiritual people and leaders, it's and all it is just like is a simple thing that you know uh, like I said, somebody thinking about you, and oh, I'm actually thinking about you at the same time.
Mhm.
Amp that up. And why isn't this possible? Like it's
Mhm.
um so I've had a long journey in the past 10 years down this path, and I mean, Devin introduced us quite a few years ago to our good friend Jamie Alvarez, an incredible guy. He does we've Devin's been multiple times to Peru with him, and they were filming. They were doing some filming down there in the receding ice, and they did celebration. You did celebration up in
Yeah.
the ice,
We did up at the
and
glacier.
you did actually quite a few. I think you've done a lot more ceremonies than I have.
Mm-hmm.
But just exploring this realm, it's been an incredible past
Yeah.
10 years, I must say. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's kind of like seen as this whole bad thing to try these like wachuma or like the San Pedro cactus or
Hmm.
ayahuasca, and you're like, oh, this
Hmm.
is like, or LSD or any of these things, DMT, whatnot, right?
Psilocybin, yeah.
Psilocybin. Although
Hmm.
those things like DMT is found in every living organism. Psilocybin is a mushroom. Mushrooms were here before we were. We basically came from mushrooms, right? Like,
Yeah.
so these things are these natural medicines that they've just been kind of demonized by governments and stuff to, start the war on drugs. And if you look at actually like the Schedule 1 drugs or whatever, it's like all the things that are completely illegal to use, even pharmaceutically, are like psilocybin, LSD, DMT, all those like kind of breaching the spirit realm things. And then all the ones that are legal are like opioids and like
Ugh.
Right.
amphetamine and all that stuff you can use pharmaceutically. And you go, hold on a second, that doesn't really make any sense.
Does this make sense?
No, yeah, right. So, but there's definitely a lot to be taught, but here, as soon as you get into stuff like that, it's like seen as like, oh, it's a party drug. I'm taking mushrooms to party, or I'm taking
Mm.
LSD to party, even though that's not what it is. It's a spiritual. It's a teacher. This little thing is a teacher and wants to take you and to learn more about yourself. And they do brain scans on people, and so much of your brain on the ayahuasca or wachuma is firing in all these different places that it never does when we're just awake normal day to day. So it literally is letting our brain and all those millions of connections that are firing, see life differently and see what could possibly be really going on. It's like what we see right now isn't everything kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I was listening
That-
to Paul. Is it Paul Stamets, Dev?
Paul Stamets,
Oh,
Paul
yeah,
Stamets
he's
talk.
amazing.
I was listening to his Joe Rogan interview. It's like a 3-hour interview on Joe
Yeah.
Rogan while I was working out the other day.
Blows your mind.
Absolutely mind-boggling. And I heard about it, and I've heard about this interview. It's like 2017, and I just listened to it like 2 days ago. Absolutely incredible. This guy, and it's the mushrooms, and like you said, the party drug thing. No, it's a way to kind of, I think, to crack open and take a peek into these other realms.
I was first introduced to Paul Stamets products by my oncologist. So I've had cancer 3 times.
Right.
And after the 3rd time, I said to myself, okay, I'm really going to get to the bottom of this. I don't want it to recur again.
Yeah.
And so I went to a holistic oncologist who was actually the head of oncology at UCSF. And he suggested that I take these mushrooms, these Stamets mushrooms. And so I take some every day. And then later on, I met him, and he is absolutely brilliant. And what mushrooms can offer us is amazing. And but just, I think maybe to wrap this subject up,
like I said, we could go
forever. One of the things that is so wonderful, well, we have touched at the beginning earlier that when colonialism and when the colonizers and the missionaries came, they forbid the shamans. They marginalized them because they were the holders of the culture, not just the wisdom, the culture. And so if you get rid of the shamans, and if you discredit shamans, then you can actually, then the people are opened up to anything. And then we'll be more compliant. And so but today, and so we had this idea that shamans or the occult or weird woo-woo stuff is weird and bad even. But today, what's coming together, what's really exciting is psychology and spirituality, medicine, and quantum physics are all coming together. They're all coming together. And there's this great confluence of realization that, oh my gosh, we're all talking about the same thing. Quantum physics has really demonstrated that they've taken little bits of blood somewhere far, far away, thousands and thousands of miles away, and then did something to this one, and it reacted, in this other place. And just a simple but profound demonstration that all things are connected. So that's what's exciting about the age that we're in now. If we can let go of our prejudice, our fear, our prejudice that we were taught when we were young, what's possible really expands in incredible ways.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Whew. So Deb, do you have I'm sure you got a question. I'm sure you got a question. Like you said, we'll wrap it up here, and Deb will throw a...
For sure. Yeah, I'll hit you with one more, Bonnie. So this is my question to you. If you could go back in time and tell a young version, like a teenager of yourself, crazy, running around, doing all the things,
Haight Ashbury,
probably artists, flowers, and all this stuff. If you could go and tell that little girl all the wisdom, the key points of wisdom that you've acquired through the years, what would it be?
Wow. So you're asking me what would I tell myself
exactly
when I was younger?
Yes. Yourself.
Wow,
No one else.
what a question. Oh my gosh. So people ask me when did I begin on a spiritual path? And my answer to that question is when I was a teenager. So first thing I would say is you're on the right track. You're on the right track. And you will, what I was really curious about and thought a lot about is the power of love, the nature, what is love, and what's what is. I'd read something by Teilhard de Chardin that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and I was really struck by that as a teenager. And so I would say that that in my life, and it's 50 or 60 years since then, that has proved to be true. And
Love it.
yeah, I think that's probably, I don't know, just to sum it up, I suppose there's a lot of well, that's a great question. I'm going to meditate on that one.
Yeah,
that was probably
perfect.
right about it. What a great question, because there are a lot more details or small things that I would say tell a younger self, but I think that's the essence of what I would tell my younger self.
That's great. Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll wrap on that. Hey, Dev.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, if you guys would like to know more about Bonny Meyer, we will put links in the description. Other than that, thank you so much for coming on the show, spreading your knowledge with us, your wisdom. Always a deep, good conversation when we get together. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Bonny. Really,
You're welcome.
Love you. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I am just going to